It gives me enormous satisfaction when I go to India, I go to villages. 5G case, the maximum throughput that somebody can get is 10 gigabits per second. By the time 6G comes along, it will be approximately 10 times that. If you notice the history of India's involvement in these communications, the time gap is reducing. There was a high school in that town, but there were no schools in the surrounding villages. So kids from other villages would come and stay at my grandfather's place to get education because there were no schools elsewhere. So I saw firsthand the impact of education on the lives of children. So when I came to know about Ekal, it was a no-brainer for me that they were doing very powerful work. We are really transforming lives in almost all aspects, not only economic, but actually also in some ways even socially as well. There was one boy who was not getting up at all and not saying anything. So then the teacher told us that this boy is deaf and mute, but he comes to school every day because he wants to learn.
Hello everyone, I am Soumya Agrawal and you are watching Ekal Bharat. Swami Vivekanand once said, all power is you and you can do anything and everything. And well, it is a very true line. If you dream about it and if you are working on it, you can achieve anything. Today, I have with me one such personality who is the Vice President of Qualcomm and is also the President of USA Chapter Ekal. He is Mr. Subra Dravida. Sir, I would like to ask you, since you are working on 6G chip now, right? And it is very obvious that India launched 5G around 3 to 4 months back hardly. So, and you're already working on 6G. So, when was 5G chip launched in USA is my first question.
It's a very good question. So, 5G actually officially was launched in US in about 2019 for the first time. However, what happens is before the launch, the actual work, the research and development for it happens many years before that. So similarly, even though people in Qualcomm, which is where I work, some of us are working on 6G, it will get launched only some 6 or 7 years from now. So just to give everybody a quick idea, in 1G it was analog, very big phones, very messy. 2G, it was voice communications mostly. Everybody started to buy voice phones. Then after that, 3G was email. 4G, you were able to do YouTube. And in 5G, there are XR, VR, and many other applications that require high bandwidth that are coming into place. And 6G will be even more bandwidth. There's a human need for communication that needs to be satisfied. It gives me enormous satisfaction when I go to India, I go to villages, and I see vegetable sellers, everybody carrying phones, some of them carrying smartphones. Communication has revolutionized the whole world. Look at Paytm and all of those things. It gives me a lot of satisfaction that what I do professionally is being used in various corners of India, even amongst the poor people.
So, you are working on 6G right now and it might take around 6 to 7 years to launch. Yes. But what will be the difference between 5G and 6G?
That's another good question. So, the net throughput you will get, in 5G case, the maximum throughput that somebody can get is 10 gigabits per second. Okay. By the time 6G comes along, it will be approximately 10 times that. You can get like 100 gigabits per second. So people have to become very inventive and come up with new applications which require that kind of bandwidth. So those have not even been invented yet. So those will come. People are very creative. They always come up with new ideas and new inventions.
So 5G was launched in US in 2019 and it was launched in India in 2023. So if we take around 6 to 7 years, that means by the end of 2030, 6G might be launched. So it might take a lot of time for India to have 6G connection, right?
I would say that, if you notice the history of India's involvement in these communications, the time gap is reducing, So previously 2G, 3G and all that, there was a much bigger time gap between US and India. But over the course of time, that is, we hope that it will only reduce. So even if it comes into 2030 in US, maybe 2031, you can get it here.
Okay, and one more question related to 6G. How do you think that having 6G chip or 6G connection here would make the lives of the people easier?
Okay, so communications, as I said, will improve vastly. First of all, bandwidth will become very cheap. So it's already geo connections are cheap. They'll become even cheaper. It will become more affordable for everybody, number one. Number two is, as I said, there will be very interesting new innovations with XR VR headsets that can be used for health and various other applications that will become profoundly useful as time goes.
Okay, that's nice. So you said that you have a very huge responsibility right now. You are working on at Qualcomm, and then you are inventing the 6G chip, and you are also, you have joined Ekal. So I want to ask that what was your inspiration or what was your guiding light behind joining Ekal?
Okay, that's a good question, and I just have to get into some background about myself. So what happened was, when I was very young, I spent a lot of time, with my grandparents. I come from a small town in Andhra Pradesh called Guntakal. I think some of you may have heard the name. So what used to happen there was a high school in that town, but there were no schools in the surrounding villages. So kids from other villages would come and stay at my grandfather's place to get education because there were no schools elsewhere. And they studied there and I was there, and teachers' salary is not much, so all my grandmother would do is one big pot of rice or ragi and one big pot of sambar. That's all. Everybody had to eat the same thing because there were so many people. Then what happened, he retired, he came and stayed with us, we were in Hyderabad. The people who studied there with him would come seek him out and they'll seek him out, the first thing they'll do is prostrate, and then they'll say, oh, I was there 61 to 64 or something like that, or 65 to 68. I studied there, and then they have become doctors. These people have become engineers, and then they will say, without you, I would have been nothing. There was one particular person I remember very well. He became an IAS officer. He came, prostrated, and said, now I've become an IAS officer. A few weeks later, he came back. He brought his wedding card. He gave it to my grandfather and told him, you and your wife, that means grandfather and grandmother, you will officiate as my parents during the wedding because without you I was zero. So I saw firsthand the impact of education on the lives of children. So when I came to know about Ekal, it was a no-brainer for me that they were doing very powerful work, that actually education really transforms for generations. So that's why I got involved with Ekal.
How did you come to know about Ekal? You just said that you came to know about Ekal. So how did you come to know about it?
So I first, around 2004 or 2005, I used to go to the Ekal fundraisers, mainly as a donor. I was not involved in Ekal in the organization. So I would go there, I would listen to the speeches and then give 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever schools we used to give. That's how I got involved. Then in 2012, I got involved in the organization. I'm in the Boston area. Some of you may know Ranjani ji, who's the executive director. So she told me to get involved. So I got involved in a deeper fashion. And then gradually, one thing led to another. I became the president of the Boston area chapter, and then became a board member of Ekal USA, and eventually became the president of Ekal USA.
Okay, so since you are the president of Ekal USA right now, so what all sectors or what all sectors come under you? What all do you watch?
So the primary responsibility of Ekal USA is fundraising. So we want to raise funds for schools and special projects that are actually executed by Ekal India in the rural areas here in all our Ekal villages. So that's one of our primary responsibilities. The second one that I am also interested in is, because I've come from the area of technology, we are trying to improve the way we do things in Ekal with the projects. I'll give you some examples. Some of my interests are, there is this computer training lab that we do. So we want to make this very effective. We recently started a program in collaboration with IIT Madras, where basically, you have computer training lab in these villages, but they are taught by the IIT staff using a Zoom connection. And after about 6 weeks or so of very intensive preparation in software testing and so on, they can actually get jobs in software companies. Some of them get jobs, some of them get jobs in village panchayats and so on. So their lives get transformed. I'll give you an example. Recently I was talking to a girl, 19 years old, I think in Jharkhand. I asked her, before coming to Ekal, did you ever see a computer? She said she had never seen a computer. Now she got this training and she's been given a job by the village panchayat, where she sits all day with a computer that the village panchayat has provided to her, And then the farmers come there, they need seeds, some of them need ration cards. Nowadays, whatever you need is available online. So she sits there and helps them all day, and in return for that, she's being paid 6,000 rupees per month. And then she was telling me, more important than money is the respect that she gets from the community. That was never there. So we are really transforming lives in almost all aspects, not only economic, but actually also in some ways even socially as well.
So you said that most of your work in USA is for fundraising, right? So is it easy to connect people in USA? Like you have to explain them about Ekal, you have to tell them that how the people living in rural and tribal parts of India mostly is the situation is not that good. So how do you convince them? How do you talk to them to be a donor and help us?
Yes, very good question. So there are two aspects. When the owners come, some of the donors, I should say, when the donors come, some of them are interested in statistics, right? They want to know how many children. We tell them, we have 105,000 schools, we have 3 million children, approximately half of them are girls. The teachers are mostly, 70% of our teachers are also women. So we tell them statistics and how we have impacted, millions of lives and all that. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, to me personally, is the more powerful. The human stories are very much more interesting. So when we did our first Maniyatra, my wife and I, we visited a school in Vada. It's a tribal area. Very interesting. So we went there, we saw the children there, they were learning, and we introduced ourselves. The kids introduced themselves to us. And then, as usual, they said some shlokas, they showed us how to do Ganit, 12 times 1 is 12, all that kind of stuff that they're doing. But in all that, my wife noticed that there was one boy who was not getting up at all and not saying anything. So my wife asked the teacher, what is with this boy? He didn't speak or give his name. So then the teacher told us that this boy is deaf and mute, but he comes to school every day because he wants to learn. And then she sat down in front of us, she gave him a 3-digit addition, she put her fingers like this, and then he would go and fold her fingers to get the right answer. It was so moving to us that someone who had no other opportunity, who has disabilities, still wants to learn. So that's what I tell our donors. I keep telling them that these kids are hungry to learn. They don't have the opportunity. It's our job to provide that opportunity. That's how I tell them.
That story is very inspiring. I'm sure a lot of people, they get emotional when they hear that story. I like to add one more question to this. So, how do you organize fundraising? Like, do you organize some programs or events so that you can have a meeting or something like that? So, how do you organize such meetings?
Yes. So we have different kinds of meetings because everybody has different tastes. There are some people who like Indian culture and songs and Bollywood dances or Bollywood music. So what we do is we have a concert. So we bring typically a very good group from India, and then they perform for 3 or 4 hours, and people get very involved. They also dance to that music and so on. That's one type of event that we do. There's another type of event we do where we want more involvement from donors. So we invite them and we tell them, these are all the projects we are doing. Do you have any ideas? So we involve them mentally. Once they get involved mentally, then they want to see it succeed. So they come up with ideas and then we implement them, we ask for feedback. So that's a different type of event. So we cater to different donors' tastes. So we have multiple types of events. It's not just one event. We do a lot of events per year.
Per year. So is there any particular number, the number of events you organize, or is it like random?
Typically what we would do, the bigger chapters in the US, we typically do at least 2 big events and then some small events as well. Sometimes it can be 3 events, so at least 2, maybe 3 or so, but other small events as well.
How do you tell them that the event is happening? How do you spread the word about the event? Because it's a big country, you live in a big country.
Yes.
And old people, they'll somehow know and they will join. But if you are collecting fundraisers, that means you need new people as well.
Right.
So how do you spread the word about the events or about Ekal? How do you do that?
Okay, very good. So right now, people of your age probably use a lot of social media.
Right.
So we are trying very much to actually give publicity to all our events through social media. So that's one very big way of doing it. Another interesting thing we did was, this particular year in San Francisco, what we did was we involved young people. So we had a gentleman who was 31 years old, and he said he will host the event at his place. He invited people of his age, all in their early 30s. So they all came there, and then we went and presented what we could do about Ekal. And that was how, we definitely need the next generation.
Right.
And that's why we are trying to invite and involve more people. So in this particular case, we lucked out. There was this gentleman, Akash Prasad, in San Francisco. He's 31. He decided to host it. He brought people of his age. So we want to continue to do that. He's going to hold another event soon. So that's one way. If we can attract a few people, using them, we bring other friends of theirs, and that's how we try to grow.
Plus, it's true that youth generally nowadays, people of my age or early 30s, they don't voluntarily go for such social service, because they think that it's not so cool, like it's thoda uncool type.
Yeah.
So now, because like that we use social media, we are currently active in social media like always, and also the future is youth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how do you, is it easy for you or for the team Ekal USA to convince youth to join Ekal, or that is my question. What did you
That's also a very good question. So what we are doing is, the way the youth get attracted is when the project involves their expertise. So for example, in this particular case, these young people, they're all involved in some form of AI and machine learning and all that, So they came to us. We also told them that they basically said, we would like to use AI and ML in teaching children. We have this thing called e-Siksha, digital education, that will benefit a lot from these new techniques. So we tell them that. So we say, we have this reach, we are willing to give tablets and all that. So, and how do we make the best use of the tablet? Then they say, I'm working on this stuff. I know how to do this software better, so that the children can learn by themselves, and all of. So that's I think it's a marriage of what Ekal does plus what their own interests are. We are trying to match them. That's the best way to bring
create
those
more
people
interest
involved.
by using their interest.
Exactly.
I get it.
Otherwise, if you just talk to them very abstractly, then it's more difficult for them to understand.
It's hard to grab the attention of the youth. I agree.
Correct.
I agree in that.
Correct.
So I'd like to ask you, you are working in Qualcomm, you are working in Ekal, and you also have your own family.
Yes.
So how do you manage time, because you are in a big project, involved in a big project.
Correct.
Ekal mein you are the president of Ekal chapter USA, and then you also have your family. How do you manage time? Isn't it tough? Isn't it really scary to manage everything and give time to everybody?
That's right. That's another good question, and it's a very challenging issue. So as you said, we work 50 hours a week for our jobs, full-time jobs. On Ekal itself, almost every day I have meetings from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. and so on. And then of course weekends we try to do some meetings, and then of course with family. It's always challenging, but luckily for me, both my wife, my daughter, they are also involved or appreciate the value of Ekal.
Oh, wow.
My wife gives a lot of time as well. My daughter is very busy. She's a doctor, but still she's very interested. She is a donor herself, So yes, you cannot do this without the cooperation of the family, without their belief in Ekal. They also believe in it. So then it's okay. Then they can say that, oh yeah, he's in an Ekal meeting, but that's important as well. So they don't see this as something that's unimportant.
I'd like to add a question. Do you have any tips or any message for youth like me? Because I don't know how to manage time properly. If I'm busy in my work, I don't think I'll be able to give time to my family. So is there any tip or any message you follow that, if we hear it or if we follow that, our life will be easier? Is there any tip as such?
Okay. Good question. It's hard for me to say, because your interests and you spend a lot more time in social media and all that, maybe much more so than I do. But in general, what I would say is, what you said was very correct. Family is extremely important. Make sure that you have the right amount of family time. And then of course, then you do these other things, including Ekal. But if you can involve your siblings, friends also in Ekal, then it becomes easier because you are spending time with them as well as doing Ekal. So that's what I would say, don't do this apart from them. Involve friends and family as much as you can into Ekal also. Then it becomes a lot easier because you can have a party, you can have your whole party, and then you spend a couple of hours on Ekal. Something like that you can do.
That's interesting. I think I'll follow this tip whenever I need it now. And so we know that in the year 2020, COVID hit the world, right? And it was a tough year, a very tough year. And so did it affect Ekal as well, the working of Ekal?
Yes, it did.
And
absolutely.
How did you all overcome it? What was the effect it had, the COVID had for Ekal, and then how did you guys overcome it?
Okay, so there are two areas which were very deeply affected by COVID. One was because of COVID and all the quarantining and so on. On the negative side of things, the schools were basically shut down.
Yeah.
Right? In most urban areas, kids who had access to digital ways, internet and all that, they were managing to continue their education. Whereas because we did not have that, pretty much all the schools got shut down. That's a lesson learned. So we told ourselves in future, we cannot let this happen. So that's why we are trying to do e-Siksha or digital education in a big way, so that in future if any such thing happens, we should still be able to provide some education to them. Similarly, healthcare. There's no infrastructure in villages. So, however, the good thing was because we had the reach, we taught the villagers how to do quarantining. When, for example, migrant laborers came back from cities to villages, we made sure that their own sons and daughters who came from the cities were quarantined. We said for 2 weeks they have to stay outside before they mingle with you. So that proved very positively beneficial to the villagers. Also, we learned that from now onwards we should create some healthcare infrastructure. So our Arogya projects basically are providing a Sevika, a community health worker who does some basic screening, basic healthcare through telemedicine. So these are the lessons we learned directly from COVID, and we said, we cannot let some of these things happen again in the future.
That's nice. So you found out a way to help people even when the world was suffering.
Yes.
That's very nice. So you have a very deep connection with technology, right? So how do you use that connection for the development of the nation?
Okay. One of course is Ekal, as I said before, computer training, digital education. Those are all things that we are trying to do for Ekal itself. You are asking a very big question. You're saying, how can this technology help the nation? I have to say that I am very impressed with the way India, Bharat has been using technology. This Paytm has been profoundly useful. Jan Dhan project, where accounts were provided through cell phones, even though there are no physical banks in these villages, has been extraordinarily helpful. Right? It has improved the productivity of the nation. A lot of money has come into the economy. There are no middlemen, there's no corruption and all that. So I think what I would say is the Indian government has realized that when you have a population of 1.4 billion people, you have to use technology to scale the programs, otherwise it's not possible. So that's why I would say that technology is a very positive thing for a country like India. Any program you can think of, easier to reach, easier to distribute things. So I would say technology will continue to play a huge role in all aspects. I'm very impressed with the national education policy that will also be aided by technology. I think government has set a goal of 50% of students should go to college. So all of those things will be made possible by digital type of tools and education.
You just mentioned about digital. So you said that in the villages also you are, it's becoming digital friendly. But that might have been a task because villagers specifically don't know a lot about technology, right? It's people like us who are living in urban areas, it's easier for us to understand technology. But for them to understand technology is difficult. Plus now we have seen and we have heard that Ekal Vidyalaya is also using tablets.
Right.
So that is a very, that is something people wouldn't imagine, that people in rural areas are using tablets to study.
Yes.
Or there are Ekal on wheels, the computer bus. So that is out of imagination for some people. So was it a task? What challenges did you have to face to, incorporate these things in the village areas.
Yes, that's correct. So yes, the intentions are good. We now realize that literacy means digital literacy. If you are not digitally literate, it's almost impossible to get a job these days. So that's why we were motivated. We started these things. But definitely in the early days, there are issues of acceptance, even some fear, right? The teachers might feel, oh, if they're getting their education through tablets, what is my role? Right? There are all these kinds of things. But what we are finding is once they settle down, they appreciate it. The teachers themselves are finding that they can learn more, they can contribute more, and of course, they can help the students. The quality of the education goes up. Previously, the quality of education in our schools was limited by the abilities of the teacher. Whatever they knew, they may be good in one subject, not so good in others. Whereas if you do the digital tools, they have, everybody's standard rises because you're not dependent entirely on the teacher, but also on outside expertise, outside software tools and so on. So I think people see the benefit eventually. So there are challenges in the beginning, but once you convince them, they will come around.
That is very nice. So I would like to ask you one more thing. Since you have shifted to USA, so do you miss India?
Yes,
so
definitely.
How frequently do you visit India?
Typically, we visit India at least once a year, I would say, except for the COVID time, that was a problem. But otherwise, we visit once, and then I visit family and so on. I'd also like to do a Vanyatra to an Ekal school.
Oh, that's nice. So every time you visit here,
I
you
try
go
to do
for
that.
Vanyatra.
Yes, I try to do that.
So how do you feel that, since you said that you just visit once a year, mostly.
Yes.
So how do you feel that, suppose you visited Abhi December, May, and then you will visit next year in December.
Yeah.
You'll see that it has changed a lot.
Yes.
It has evolved a lot.
Yes.
So how do you feel seeing that you have seen Ekal since it started almost.
Right.
So how do you feel to see the development it has been through?
Yeah. So yes, they have adapted a lot. A lot of the projects, as you know, we started with schools to begin with. Then we added things like Ekal on Wheels. Then we did these IVD projects with computer training and tailoring and so on, right? So definitely there, while there are challenges and so on, we learn some lessons, we do some pilots, we scale them up. And obviously there are things to learn, right? Because this is a huge project. But what we are finding is we are touching a lot more people's lives. I gave you an example of this girl who had never seen a computer. We talked to another girl. She said that she got married. Her husband would not allow her to leave the house or something like that. But through some computer training, she's now able to get a job without leaving her house in some faraway place and getting a very good salary as well, So these are all, positive changes that we are seeing. We have some challenges, we overcome them. And then what is gratifying to people like us, the volunteers, all of us, is that we see the change. Even if you see a few people, and then slowly it starts to build.
That's really nice. It must feel really good, right?
Yes.
They are developing under your guidance.
And our help,
and
whatever
right.
we can do. That's right. We are providing the opportunity. They have to do the hard work to take advantage of that opportunity. It's both ways, and we are seeing that.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful feeling. I agree. So you might know that you might have heard about Ram Mandir and Ayodhya.
Yes,
right?
of course.
So what is your feeling about that?
Okay. So I am waiting. So I will come again. I think there is some Pran Pratishtha going on in January, but my understanding is. But I think the full inauguration is going to happen in 24, and obviously I will be here, and next year I hope
so
to.
You will be here?
I'll hope to visit.
So is there any event or anything as such that is happening in USA as well? Because we have heard that there are something going on in USA related to Ram Mandir.
Okay. Yeah, I think there will be more of these, everybody is keenly anticipating, right? So we have a lot of events where we have Sundarakand and so on, a lot of related things that are happening.
So you all are planning to do something?
We are all planning, we are all looking forward with great pride and joy that finally this moment is coming. We are very, very, very excited, and a lot of us, I'm sure, will come and visit at the first available opportunity.
That's right. So is there any, because since I am asking you the questions, is there anything that is coming up to your mind that you would like to share with our viewers? Any stories or anything that would inspire them or that you would like to share? Any story in general?
Okay. So in general, what I will say is the following. One message I want to give to the youth,
Yeah, that's
So
important.
what I would like to say is sometimes the young people will think, oh, this is, I have to be a donor. I don't have money. I'll come back when. That's not the only thing we want. In fact, we want your ideas, and your time is very important. Some examples I can give here. So in Ekal USA, we started some youth programs where the young people, what they can do is they can teach whatever they know, some computer programming or some math or physics, whatever it is they are experts in. They'll just hold a class, and so that way not only do they teach them some valuable skill, but alongside that they also tell them about Ekal. In fact, more importantly, when they do that, we insist that on the final day when you get a certificate, the parents also come. So that way the parents also become aware of Ekal. So what I would like to say is, even as youth, please get involved in Ekal. Whatever you want, whether it's singing or dancing or this subject or that subject, you can teach to others, get them involved, get their parents involved. So this way, we actually grow the ranks of Ekal, and especially the interest amongst the youth, because we are all getting old, but we need more young and next generation people to continue to stay involved.
While we are on the topic of youth, I would ask you one more question. So it's like most of the people who they complete their bachelor's here and then they shift to abroad for further studies. They almost start doing their job, but then they leave the job and they start their own business there. So what is it like? Is it easier to start the business there, or is there anything that motivates them that whenever they go to abroad, most of the people who shifts to abroad starts their own business? So
what I would say is the following. Starting a business in India used to be difficult.
Right.
Many years ago when I was a student and when I graduated and so on. But even in India now things have changed, right? I think I'm seeing that businesses are being started by students from everywhere, not just from the major cities. You're seeing it from even kind of smaller cities as well, right? They're sensing the opportunity and doing. So I would say that the starting business type of thing is not exclusive to US or something. Now it has spread here. People see the advantage of owning their own business and how they can help the community and so on. So I would say there's not much difference. That difference that has narrowed.
People of my age, they think that going to abroad and settling there is cool.
Yeah.
I want to complete my studies and then I want to go there.
Go there.
So my question is, if you ever get a chance to come back to India and settle here, would you do that, and why, if yes?
Yeah. So certainly, I'm, in time, right? Right now I'm busy working, but in due course of time, my goal is, once I, leave Qualcomm, then I would basically spend a lot of time here for various reasons, whether it's Ekal or teaching or things like that, So I would like to spend much more time here.
Okay.
I mean, the opportunities in India have gone up exponentially.
Right.
The distinction, the difference in opportunity was great when I was a student and when I was going abroad, but now it has narrowed significantly. In fact, I graduated from IIT Madras. Back then, a lot of people used to go, but now I found out that very few people go. Hardly, in single-digit percentages or less. So, which means that India में बहुत तरक्की हुई है. There are much more opportunities for in any field you want. So things are going very well here.
And that's nice. So this is one last thing. So, do you have any message? Might not be related to Ekal, but because you know that youth nowadays give up easily, or maybe on their dreams or any other thing. So, do you have a last message you'd like to give them to motivate them, to
Yes.
keep them sort of inspired?
Yes. So what I would say is, definitely, as you said, whatever field you are working in, it doesn't matter, whether it's scientific or in the arts, performing arts, whatever it is. Now, if you have a dream, please do pursue it. Work really hard. The number of opportunities are enormous here in every field. So if you work hard, you will get the result, and please do share those results with those who are less fortunate than you.
So this was Mr. Subra Dravida, who showed us that hard work can lead you to anything, whatever you think. He is selflessly and rigorously working for the betterment of our society. Stay tuned with us and we'll bring you more such stories. Till then, if you haven't liked, shared and subscribed to our channel, please do it. Take care.